I staggered into the ER, blood soaking through my shirt, the metallic scent swirling in the sterile air. I could barely hear the bustle around me, but I felt every eye, every whisper. This was the last place I wanted to be, yet it was my only chance to escape. My heart pounded, each beat a desperate reminder of why I'd fled. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed, and I fought the rising tide of panic mixed with the pain throbbing from where David had slammed me against the wall hours earlier. The shadows in my mind twisted, threatening to pull me under. A trauma nurse approached, his face shifting from concern to urgency as he closed the distance. "Can I help you?" His tone was gentle, comforting, but it felt almost invasive. "I'm fine," I mumbled, my voice barely above a whisper, clutching my shirt as if somehow it could hide the blood beneath. "No, you're not," he replied, his tone firm yet compassionate. "Let's get you checked out." I wanted to scream, to tell him to leave me alone, yet all I could do was nod. Leaning against the cold metal of the triage desk, I felt the world crash around me. A flash of memory struck, David's hand tightening around my wrist, his words searing into my mind. "You'll never get away from me." The smell of disinfectant mingled with the fear swirling in my gut, threatening to suffocate me. Tears threatened to spill over, and I turned my head to hide behind a curtain of hair, inhaling deeply to steady myself. "Can you tell me what happened?" the nurse asked, not pushing but insistent. I didn't look up. Instead, the warmth trickled down my forehead, the sting reminding me of my reality. "I fell," I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. I clenched my jaw, refusing to let the truth seep out. I'd never felt so exposed. Just then, a weighty silence descended over us as I was struck by fear. Before I knew it, my legs gave way, and I collapsed against the desk. The nurse barely caught me, surprising me with his strength as he held me upright. I flinched away from his touch, muscles tense and ready to bolt. "You're safe now," he said softly, and I longed to believe him, but all I could feel was the phantom hold of David's grip on my heart. Guiding me into a curtained-off area, the sound of the ER faded into a muffled hum, replaced by the persistent beeping of a heart monitor. "Just breathe," he urged as he began to clean the gash on my head. His hands moved with precision, a stark contrast to the chaos whirling inside me. I struggled to steady my breathing, memories of David's rage crashing against my resolve. "Are you dizzy?" he asked, concern etched in his brow. "I'm fine. Really, My voice wavered as he tilted my head, inspecting the wound. I winced, my instinct to withdraw battling with the realization of my vulnerability. "Look, you're not fine. You've got a significant head wound and multiple bruises. I need you to be honest with me." His eyes bore into mine with an intensity that urged me to break my silence, yet I slammed the door shut on that idea. A familiar face appeared in the waiting area, David, leaning against the wall with an easy charm that sharply contrasted with my anxiety. His presence washed over me, and I recoiled inwardly, fighting to maintain my composure. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, his voice smooth. I felt my heart race. "She needs some time to recover," the nurse interjected, positioning himself protectively between us. I admired his firmness. It felt like a barrier shielding me from the threat I knew was lurking. Just a fall. I tried to sound casual, but my heart raced at the sight of David. He might see through my act, and my mind ran wild with possibilities. As the nurse attended to my wound, he continually glanced toward me, his focus unwavering. "You don't have to go back to him," he reassured me, his voice softening. I started, panic rising, but fear sent my voice spiraling down. I had no idea how to articulate the truth, a truth I was terrified to face. With each gentle movement of the nurse's hands, I felt a flicker of warmth, a promise of protection slowly penetrating my icy shell. Here was a man who saw me for more than just bruises. He recognized the brokenness beneath, and still I hesitated, grappling with whether I truly deserved this kindness. "I can help," he said again, sincerity woven into his tone. "You just need to tell me what you need." The words felt foreign yet tantalizing, igniting hope and fear in equal measure. Could I trust him? Could I let the truth spill forth? In that moment of doubt, I clutched both reality and possibility close, waiting for the strength to finally break free. The nurse's hands were steady as he finished cleaning the wound, but my heart raced from the tension that hung thick in the air. David loomed in the background like a dark cloud, echoing threats I'd buried deep, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he had the power to sweep in and take me back at any moment. "Okay, let's take a look at these bruises," the nurse said, gently moving my shirt to examine my arms. I flinched at the tender touch, but took a shaky breath instead of pulling away, glaring at the floor as shame washed over me. How many times had I told myself it wasn't that bad? "Your arms," he began, cautiously probing the bluish marks that painted my skin like grotesque art, "are consistent with defensive wounds." His tone was clinical, but there was an underlying kindness that made it feel less like an examination and more like a conversation. "Did you fall like you said, or were you trying to protect yourself?" I swallowed hard. The words caught in my throat like shards of glass. "I fell," I insisted, colder than I intended, hoping that my tone would keep him from asking further. I was already teetering on the edge of disclosing the truth. I didn't need to give him any more ammunition to disbelieve me, or worse, to push me to confront the reality I was terrified to acknowledge. The nurse's brow furrowed slightly, and I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. "You don't have to hide it. Whatever it is, you're safe here." Just as he spoke, a shadow passed behind him. My heart raced when glimpsing David's silhouette darkening the room's doorway. "What's taking so long?" he asked, the sweetness in his voice dripping with something far more sinister. His charm felt like poison, and the nurse instantly straightened, redirecting his focus to me. "Just a moment, sir. I'm assessing her injuries," he replied, but I could sense the authority lacing his tone, an unspoken acknowledgement that he was my protector in this moment. David stepped into the room, an easy smile masking the depravity beneath, and I felt my pulse quicken, the air thick with tension. "I just came to check on my wife," he said, the word wife hanging in the air like a taunt, as if he were a king surveying his territory. The nurse's body stiffened, but he maintained eye contact with me, as if to reinforce that the choice was mine. "She's in good hands. You need to wait outside," he said firmly, not a hint of doubt in his tone. "You can't just keep her from me." David's voice rose, filled with faux indignation that belied the reality I lived. "You have no idea what kind of person she is." The nurse shook his head, unfazed. "I can assure you she's in good hands as long as she's with me, and right now she needs space. Space." The word resonated through me, awakening an unfamiliar strength, though I felt my facade beginning to crack. With each passing second, I could feel David's impatience growing like a storm brewing in the distance. "You're not fine," the nurse said to me again, returning his attention, urging me to confront the truth of my situation. "You should be honest with me. If David hurt you, I need to document it." My throat tightened at the thought. I felt the weight of shame suffocating. I opened my mouth to speak, but only silence spilled forth. "Did you really fall, Sarah?" The nurse's voice was soft yet insistent, and though I fought against it, his question took root in my heart. I began but faltered, crashing against the walls I had built around myself. "I'm going to step outside for a moment," the nurse said suddenly, A decision formed as he turned directly towards David. "I'll be back in a few." My eyes followed him, thankful for the brief reprieve, but terrified at the looming possibility of what awaited me when he left me alone with David. I could feel the weight of the room shift, the air crackling with tension. "Did you think you could just tell lies like that, and nobody would believe you?" David spat, stepping closer, the friendly charm evaporating. My heart raced as I instinctively flinched, but it was David's icy words that cut deeper than any bruise. "I am not lying," I shouted, surprising myself. It felt empowering, if only for a moment, to fight back. His eyes narrowed, his voice deadly calm. "You think they'll believe you over me?" But the truth felt like a shred of glass lodged in my throat. In that instant, the nurse returned, and my moment of defiance fizzled out, replaced by fear that curled in my stomach. "Is everything okay?" he asked, scanning the scene and sensing the unease. "Let's get back to it," David replied, forcing a smile. "I'll help her get home." "No," the nurse replied vehemently, taking a protective step closer to me, as if I were a rare, delicate flower he was shielded by. "Sarah is staying here until I can ensure she has everything she needs. You're not taking her home like this." David glared, his demeanor shifting into something more sinister, a terrifying shadow casting over the sanctuary the nurse had worked so hard to create for me. I felt trapped, my options dwindling, but a flicker of hope ignited within me. With the nurse by my side, I could feel the walls I had built begin to crack, opening the door I needed to walk through. But could I truly trust him to keep his promise? The seeds of change had been planted, and as I met the nurse's eyes, I realized I was no longer just surviving. I was beginning to fight. The tension in the room intensified as David's eyes hardened, the mask of charm cracking beneath the weight of my defiance. I felt the air grow thick, heavy with the unspoken confrontation that hung between us. Behind me, the nurse stood firm, ready to protect me, his demeanor radiating strength and reassurance. "Did you really think you could lie and get away with it?" David growled, taking a step closer, his voice dripping with venom. "I'm not lying," I snapped back, surprised at the fierceness of my own voice. It felt liberating, even if just for a moment, but fear quickly crept back in as I saw the familiar darkness flicker in David's eyes. The nurse stepped forward, casting me a sideways glance that radiated support. "You need to leave, sir," he instructed David firmly. "Sarah needs to feel safe, and you are making that impossible." David's face twisted in anger before settling into a forced, condescending smile. "I think you're misunderstanding the situation. She's just confused. She needs me." His voice dripped with manipulation, and my heart raced as I recognized that tone. "What you need," the nurse countered, standing his ground, "is to understand that manipulation won't work here. We're not in your home. This is a safe place for her, and I won't allow you to intimidate her." For a moment, the tension ebbed, and I felt hope flickering in my chest. Maybe I could trust this nurse. Maybe this was the first step toward a new life. "Do you want to tell him what really happened, Sarah?" The nurse's voice was soft, coaxing, and he glanced at me with an intensity that made me feel seen. I hesitated, my heart racing. Those words held a power I wasn't sure I could wield. Did I dare expose the truth? I faltered, my throat closing up at the fear of what might come next. David's dark gaze burned into me, threatening to suppress my voice once again. "What's the point of dragging this out?" David interjected, his calm facade cracking into irritation. "You think they'll believe you? Over me?" His intonation cut, and for a moment I faltered. In that brief moment of doubt, the nurse stepped closer, his presence grounding me. "If you don't speak up, Sarah, I can't protect you from him," he urged gently. reminding me that silence had already cost me so much. With a rush of adrenaline, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my truth pressing against my ribs. He hurt me, I finally stammered, the words spilling from my mouth like a dam burst. In an instant, the air crackled as David's face contorted in fury. "You'll regret this," he hissed, the warmth of his demeanor dissipating into a chilling threat that made my stomach twist. The nurse didn't flinch. "You need to leave now, or I'll call security," he said, unwavering. David's eyes sparkled with rage, but before he could reply, the nurse pressed on. "You're not welcome here. Your relationship with Sarah has crossed a line, and I won't allow her to be further victimized." Just as the weight of David's fury reached a fever pitch, he let out a low growl and backed away from me, throwing a final, threatening look before he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I felt the silence wash over the room, a strange mix of calm and fear wrapping around me like an embrace. The nurse turned to face me, searching my expression, the shadows of worry lingering in his eyes. "How are you feeling?" he asked carefully. "Scared." The word slipped from my lips unbidden, revealing a truth I had buried deep for far too long. "I understand," he said, his voice soothing, "but know that you are safe here. You just did something incredibly brave." I lowered my gaze, the enormity of my admission settling over my shoulders like a heavy cloak. "I don't know what to do." The nurse nodded, stepping back slightly to give me space. "Let's take it one step at a time. First, I need to make sure you're medically stable, and then we can discuss your options. There's a social worker who specializes in cases like yours. She can talk you through what comes next." I swallowed hard, uncertainty swirling in my gut. What if he finds me? He has a ways of getting what he wants. Then we will make sure you're protected. I won't let him harm you again, he reassured me, his expression resolute. There was a fierce compassion in his eyes, a raw determination that ignited flickers of hope within me. As I felt the walls of fear beginning to crack, an overwhelming urge surfaced, the desire to reclaim my life from the pain that had held me captive for too long. "I want to be safe," I confessed, vulnerable but resolved. "Then we're going to get you there," the nurse declared firmly, his determination infectious. "You don't have to face this alone anymore. You're not going back to him, not if I have anything to say about it." With each passing moment, the flickering hope grew stronger, burning through the haze of my past. Okay, I want to try," I finally said, my voice steadied by conviction. "Then let's start fresh. I'll make sure the social worker comes in to talk to you about resources. We'll figure out what's best for you, Sarah," he promised. I could feel the beginnings of a new chapter unfurling, and as I embraced that flicker of hope, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was learning to fight back. Minutes felt like hours as I sat quietly in the sterile room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My heart raced with a mix of fear and hope, and the nurse's confident reassurances replayed in my mind like a mantra. I took a moment to breathe deeply, trying to steady my tumultuous emotions. Before long, the nurse returned with a woman behind him. "This is Lisa Chen," he introduced, stepping aside to let her into the room. Lisa was in her late 30s, with gentle eyes and a warmth that enveloped me despite the clinical setting. She wore a soft cardigan that felt inviting, contrasting with the starkness of the hospital gown draped over my shoulders. "Hi there, Sarah," she said, her tone soothing. "I'm here to help you figure out your next steps." I nodded, feeling a flutter of vulnerability in the pit of my stomach. I was so tired of feeling lost, so tired of having to articulate every fear and concern. "Your nurse, Ethan," Lisa continued, glancing back at him with a small smile that seemed to brighten the room. tells me you might be ready to talk about what you're going through. Is that right? I hesitated, staring down at my hands, which were still trembling slightly. I need help, I finally managed, my voice cracking. Good. That's a brave step, Lisa encouraged, her eyes full of empathy. Why don't you tell me what's been going on? As I began to recount my story, each word felt like I was peeling back layers of an onion. Painful, but necessary. I explained the bruises, the fear, and the darkness that shadowed my days. I painted a picture as best as I could, revealing pieces of myself that had long been tucked away. And David, I said, the name lodged heavily in my throat. He always makes it seem like it's my fault. That's a common tactic among abusers, Lisa explained gently. They manipulate and twist the truth to maintain power, but you're not to blame for his actions. The validation felt like a balm on my raw wounds, but a doubt persisted. I just keep thinking I could have done something differently. If I had just... No, Lisa interrupted softly but firmly. There's nothing you could have done to deserve or prevent the abuse. You're not responsible for his choices. Tears blurred my vision, and I wiped my eyes with my sleeve, overwhelmed by the release. For so long, I had internalized the guilt, and suddenly it felt liberating to place it where it truly belonged, on David. Let's talk about your options moving forward, Lisa said, her voice steadying my racing heart. There are shelters, legal advice, and therapy available to you. You don't have to navigate this alone. Shelters? My voice trembled. I don't want to be a burden to anyone. You won't be a burden, Sarah. These resources are designed specifically for survivors. You deserve safety and comfort, and you can take your time. There are no deadlines. As her words sank in, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe I could find a place to be safe. What if he finds me? I whispered, an old fear surfacing. The shelter staff have protocols in place to ensure your safety. It's a place to start fresh, away from David and the chaos. The thought both terrified and thrilled me. It was a step I hadn't dared to consider until now, the possibility of a life free from fear. I need to think about it, I admitted. But the more I contemplated, the more I felt the weight of that choice lift ever so slightly. Absolutely, she replied, establishing that my pace and comfort were paramount. But know that regardless of what you choose, your mark is here. You are not alone. I want to be safe, I finally said, the words spilling out. I want to break free from this. That's the spirit, Ethan remarked from his spot by the door, pride evident in his tone. You are much stronger than you know. I dared to connect the dots between the life I wanted and the life I was living. I could feel the tendrils of fear loosening their grip, revealing fragments of possibility. With this newfound sense of agency, I understood what was at stake, not just my physical safety, but my very identity. As Lisa continued to explain the resources available, I found myself leaning in, actively engaging in our conversation. In those moments, the seed of hope began to blossom into concrete determination. This is not going to be easy, Lisa cautioned. But sometimes the path to healing starts with taking it one step at a time. I echoed her sentiment back to myself, muttering under my breath, one step at a time. After the session, as Lisa left to gather more information, Ethan returned, taking her place beside me. Are you okay? He asked gently. You did well back there. Yeah, I think I finally want to start taking steps. I don't want to hide anymore. My voice was firm, punctuated by the pulse of newfound resolve. I'm proud of you, Sarah, Ethan said, looking into my eyes with genuine warmth. And I mean it. You deserve to find peace. You're stronger than you think. His belief in me ignited a spark in my chest, a reassurance I desperately needed. That means a lot, I said, feeling the heat rise to my cheeks under his genuine gaze. With each passing moment, I could feel the fragile trust between us solidifying, and I realized that I was no longer isolated in my turmoil. "I just want to help you through this," he said softly, "and I'll be here every step of the way." His promise resonated deep within me, filling the void that had been there for so long. Stricken by his kindness, I felt the beginnings of something that had once felt impossible: hope. In that small hospital room, surrounded by stark white walls and the scent of antiseptic, I began to envision a future unclouded by fear. Maybe, just maybe, I could take those steps toward reclaiming my life. For the first time in years, I felt like I had the power to fight back. The air in the hospital was thick with the antiseptic smell that had become familiar to me, but now it felt charged with anticipation. Each day that crept by brought me closer to a new reality, the sound of monitors beeping, echoing hope rather than fear. I had begun to picture a life without David's shadow looming over me, but I knew the battle wasn't over yet. A week had passed since that momentous conversation with Lisa, and I was still under constant observation. I filled my days with therapy sessions, small visits from Ethan, and listening to the stories of other women in the shelter. Each connection felt like a lifeline, but a nagging fear lingered like a storm cloud on the horizon, always reminding me of the man I was trying to escape. Then that fear crystallized into reality. It was a quiet afternoon, and I was sitting in the therapy room, chatting with Lisa about coping strategies. Our conversation was punctuated by laughter over shared stories. It felt surreal to be in a place where I could openly express joy, but that laughter was abruptly cut short when I heard raised voices leaking through the corridor, barely muffled by the closed door. "Where is she?" a voice like fire demanded, icy and familiar. I froze, the blood draining from my face. "He's here," I whispered, panic rising in my throat, disrupting the calming sensation I had cultivated. The stark realization sent a jolt of adrenaline racing through my veins. "What?" Lisa asked, her brow furrowing with concern. She turned toward the door, clearly hearing the urgency as well. "Him! David's here!" I breathed sharply, my heart pounding like a war drum. This sudden incursion of fear shattered the momentary calm I had been clinging to. "Stay here," Lisa instructed, her voice steady and authoritative as she kicked into action. She stepped toward the door but paused, looking back at me. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted, my eyes wide with dread. "What if he tries to take me back?" She nodded, understanding the gravity of the threat. "You're safe, I promise." With that, she opened the door just a crack and slipped into the hallway, leaving me in a cloud of anxiety. My pulse raced, every second feeling like a countdown to catastrophe. Through the thin gap, I could see Ethan standing with another nurse, his stance firm as if a barricade. David loomed, his expression a mixture of anger and desperation. "What do you mean she's not allowed to leave? She's my wife!" I could barely hear David's voice, but the ice in it pierced through the walls of my fear. His charm was gone, replaced by a sense of entitlement that made my stomach churn. "She is not going anywhere with you," Ethan responded, his voice unwavering. "We're taking precautions for her safety. You think you can just keep her from me?" David spat, rage pulsating through every word. "You have no idea what you're doing." "Actually, I know exactly what I'm doing," Ethan shot back, a power coursing through his words that sent a thrill of hope through me. "I'm protecting a victim of domestic violence, and I will not allow you to intimidate her any longer." My heart swelled with gratitude. As much as I wanted to shield myself from the chaos outside, a part of me needed to hear this battle being fought for me. "Go away, David," I whispered to myself, a prayer forming between my lips. "You can't come in here." The silence that followed felt heavy, stretching taut and promising calamity. I could picture David's face twisted in fury, knowing he was accustomed to getting his way, and I feared the fury would come crashing down on me now. Then a voice broke the silent tension. "We're calling the police if you don't leave immediately," Lisa declared firmly, stepping into my line of vision. She had returned, her presence a buoy in the storm. "Police?" David scoffed, the contempt dripping from his lips while tossing a glance filled with disbelief. "For what, exactly? No one will believe you." "They will listen," Lisa insisted, her voice unwavering. "You're scaring her. You need to leave." The steadfastness in her tone ignited a fire in my gut, amplifying the resolve that had begun to take root. I wasn't alone. This time, there were people who cared and would see me through. "Sarah, you know I can't let you stay here," David shouted, his voice thick with frustration. "We need to work this out." "Work what out?" I shot back, anger building. "You mean destroy me completely?" For a second, all fell silent. I had found my voice, and the words tumbled out, clearer than they had in years. David bristled at my audacity, and I could see the calculations flickering behind his eyes, confusion mixed with irritation at my defiance. "I'll be back," he declared, his voice flat but filled with ominous intent. "You can't hide forever." The moment David turned to leave, Ethan exhaled a breath of relief, the tension in his posture loosening. But that relief was short-lived as I realized the impending threat still loomed large on the horizon of my mind. "Are you okay, Sarah?" Ethan asked gently, drawing near to me again, the protective stance shifting from physical confrontation to emotional support. I don't know," I stammered, shaken but resolved. "Why does he always have to do this?" "Because he's an abuser," Lisa replied. "And abusers thrive on control. That's how he survives, by trying to manipulate you into returning to him." Ethan's voice lowered but was stirring with urgency. "You've taken a courageous step, Sarah. You can't undo that." Just then, I felt an unexpected surge of anger boil beneath my skin as I clenched my fists. "I won't let him take my life any longer. I'm done hiding." The fire in my chest rekindled, igniting my determination. "I want to file a report. I want to press charges." Ethan met my gaze, surprised but profoundly proud. "That's a significant decision, Sarah. We're here to help you." "Then let's do it," I said, my voice steady, unwavering. "I want to be free of him once and for all." "That's the spirit," Lisa encouraged, clasping my hand firmly, reinforcing the bond that had formed throughout the chaos. "You have the strength within you. We'll make sure you're supported every step of the way." With the walls of fear thickening around me, I was able to see the flickering flame of advocacy, of control, finally shifting back into my hands. I knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but for the first time, I felt my heart beat, not out of fear, but out of defiance. As the weight of David's threat hung in the air, I could also feel the unwavering support from Ethan and Lisa, reminding me that I was not alone. I was ready to confront the past and step into a future of my own making. With clarity surging through me, I stood on the precipice of change, resolute and ready to fight for my freedom. The following days felt like a blur, caught in the whirlwind of meetings, police reports, and legal jargon that transformed my world into something unrecognizable yet thrillingly liberating. I had chosen to press charges against David, each moment a step deeper into a realm of empowerment that I had long thought out of reach. Ethan was there every step of the way, his presence a steadying force that calmed the storm within me. Despite the looming threat of David, the support from Ethan and Lisa made the reality of my newfound choices bearable. One afternoon, as I sat in a conference room surrounded by medical staff and law enforcement, the gravity of what I was doing hit me. The room buzzed with low conversations, but I felt like I was in a glass fortress, aware that the walls were my only comfort, while simultaneously suffocating me. I glanced at Ethan sitting across the table, and he gave me a reassuring nod as if he could read my thoughts. "We're here because we take these matters seriously," an officer spoke, glancing between Ethan and me. "Sarah, can you recount what happened with David on the day you came to the ER?" I swallowed hard. I had been trying to leave him. That day he caught me in the kitchen and the words caught in my throat, a lead weight threatening to pull me underwater. "Take your time," Ethan encouraged gently. "You're safe here." I focused on his voice, grounding myself as I pushed through the fear. He grabbed my arm and threw me against the counter. I fell, and he made it clear that I was nothing without him. My voice wavered, but the pain of the memory bolstered my resolve. "I don't want to go back there." "Good," the officer nodded. "That's why we're here, to ensure you don't have to." With each detail I revealed, I felt the pressure begin to lift. There was strength in my voice, a power that had been dormant for far too long. The officer's questions felt less like a test and more like a lifeline, anchoring me in the present. Just as I began to feel the weight of my words transform into defiance, the door swung open with a loud bang, and my pulse raced with recognition. David was here. Everything in me froze. Panic sliced through my newfound confidence. Would he try to intimidate me again? My breath quickened as I felt the familiar chill seep into the room, an icy void where warmth had just begun to blossom. Ethan sprang to his feet immediately, his posture rigid as he moved to shield me. "You need to leave. You're not allowed in here," he stated, voice low but firm. David looked wild, his eyes burning with an intensity that coursed through the air like electricity. "I'm here to see my wife," he growled, his tone dripping with entitlement. "Sarah's not your property," Ethan shot back, his voice steady. "You're making her uncomfortable. I suggest you leave before we escalate this further." Through the tension, I could feel the trembling in my limbs. Every instinct screamed at me to hide, but the fire from before ignited again. I was no longer simply the victim. "Don't you dare pretend you care, David," I said, my voice rising and cutting through the room. "You're a monster. I'm done letting you control my life." The room fell into a charged silence, and I could feel the weight of my own words lingering in the air, vibrant and alive. I had faced him, and for the first time, I was standing my ground. David's face contorted with rage, and just when I expected an explosion of anger, something shifted within him. The mask slipped, revealing his true self, one that was dark and desperate. "You'll regret this," he hissed, but even as he threatened me, I could sense a hint of fear in his voice. "Leave now, or I will call security," the officer warned, his voice resolute. As David turned, the tension shattered, and I let out a shaky breath. With him gone, I could feel a shift. I was reclaiming my life. Minutes later, one of the officers approached, looking at me with a kind but serious expression. "We'll be filing the report now, and I want to assure you that this process is taken very seriously. Your safety is paramount." I nodded, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. "Thank you," I managed, feeling a mix of trepidation and relief wash over me. In the days that followed, I learned more about the legal system, protection orders, criminal charges, and the role of advocates. Each piece of information felt like armor against the onslaught of fear that had haunted me for years. My therapy sessions with Lisa became a place of not only healing, but empowerment. "Sarah, remember that you're not just a victim. By speaking out, you are becoming a survivor. Every step you take is your choice," she said encouragingly during one of our sessions, a firm belief resonating in her voice. "I just need to keep reminding myself of that," I replied, the concept slowly sinking in. One afternoon, after what felt like an exhausting series of meetings, Ethan found me sitting in the hospital courtyard, staring blankly at the trees swaying gently in the breeze. I didn't hear him approach until he sat down beside me. "Need some air?" he asked, his voice a warm balm that offered comfort amidst the uncertainty. "Yeah," I admitted, rubbing my temples as I exhaled a heavy breath. Ethan shifted closer, respecting my space, yet closeness encouraging without being invasive. "You've been through so much already. How are you holding up?" "I'm scared," I confessed, emotion snagging in my throat. "What if it's not enough? What if he finds a way around all of this?" His gaze softened, yet it was resilient. "You're doing everything right. You're identifying the abuse, taking steps to protect yourself, and choosing to keep moving forward." Each of Ethan's words wrapped around my heart, fortifying the crumbled pieces. There was reassurance in knowing that I wasn't alone. Recovering from trauma was a journey, and together we stood on solid ground. "I appreciate you being here for me, Ethan," I said earnestly, allowing the gratitude to pour forth. "I don't know what I would have done without you." You're stronger than you think, Sarah," he said, his eyes piercing through the shadows of doubt that surrounded me. "And I'm not going anywhere." I turned to look at him, gratitude washing over me like a wave. For so long I had felt completely alone, despairing in the darkness David left. But now, with Ethan's steadfast support, I discovered the joy in facing the light. In that moment, I realized that the fight ahead was not just about justice for what David had done to me. It was also about reclaiming the life I was meant to lead. As I sat alongside this man who had shown me kindness in the midst of darkness, I allowed a fragile but growing hope to take root. Together, perhaps we could both find a way to heal. The days passed with a strange, unsettling cadence. Each dawn felt like a new beginning, but the weight of my reality remained heavy on my shoulders. The paperwork was flooded with endless legal jargon, but every step I took felt like a declaration of my intention to reclaim my life. And still, the specter of David loomed, a constant reminder that I was not yet free. Then came the day of the court hearing, the moment I had both dreaded and anticipated. Sitting in the waiting room, my heart raced with anxious energy. The courthouse was cold and imposing, the air thick with formality and tension. I could feel Ethan's presence beside me, a warm contrast against the intimidating atmosphere, his hand resting protectively on my back. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice a low murmur amid the muted whispers around us. I'm not sure what ready even feels like anymore. I could feel my pulse thrumming in my ears. What if he shows up? What if they don't believe me? Ethan leaned closer, his gaze unwavering. "They will believe you, Sarah. Your voice matters, and you have the support of people who care about you." With his encouragement, I closed my eyes and took a steadying breath, forcing down the rising tide of fear. I pictured the trees in the courtyard swaying gently and focused again on the strength I felt in claiming my truth. When we heard my name called, I nearly jumped out of my seat. I rose, legs trembling beneath me, as Ethan stood at my elbow, a solid presence at my side. "Remember, I'll be right here," he promised as we walked into the courtroom. Seeing the judge take his seat felt surreal, but even more shocking was the sight of David across the room. His scowl sent a chill through me, but I stood taller beneath the weight of my newfound strength. As we settled into our seats, I noticed the prosecuting attorney glancing at me with a reassuring nod. "We'll start with your testimony," she said, clearing her throat. "Whenever you're ready, Sarah." I took a deep breath, steadying the tremors in my hands. I looked at the gathered crowd, but my gaze landed on Ethan, his eyes filled with encouragement. "I'm ready," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. As I spoke, recalling the details of the abuse, I felt the weight of each word grounding me into my narrative. I shared the fear, the manipulation, the bruises that marked a timeline of my suffering. There was a moment when I glanced at David, and his expression contorted into a blend of rage and disbelief, but I didn't waver. I had reclaimed my voice, my power. After what felt like an eternity, the prosecuting attorney wrapped up, making space for questions. The defense lawyer rose, a smirk on his face that made bile rise in my throat. "You're claiming that your injuries were the result of your husband and not an accident?" he began, his tone dismissive. "Yes," I replied firmly, anger fueling my voice. "I fell, but he's the one who pushed me. Isn't it true that you have a history of being clumsy? Perhaps it's not related to him at all." The insinuation hung in the air, and I felt the heat of shame wash over me, but I pushed it away. No, I wouldn't allow him to negate my experience. This is not about whether I'm clumsy. This is about the violence I endured because of him. Ethan shifted beside me, and I could feel support radiating from him, helping me brush off the accusations. The questioning continued, and I stood my ground, each answer bringing me closer to a very visceral kind of truth. This was my life, and I was not going to let anyone twist it. Finally, after what seemed like an agonizing series of back and forths, the attorney sat back down, and I felt Ethan's hand squeeze mine, a silent assurance that he was with me, no matter what happened next. As the hearing continued, David took the stand, and panic surged through me like a tidal wave. My stomach twisted into knots, but I couldn't back down now. I needed to confront him. His testimony was filled with contradictions. He twisted the narrative, portraying me as the unstable partner, eager to deflect his control. But within the steel of his voice lay the familiar layers of false charm, and it made me nauseous. I focused on his words, each fabricated lie driving me closer to clarity and strength. "Sarah has always been overdramatic. She can't take responsibility for her actions," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. The words felt like a brand, but I was ready to push back. "Those words are an attempt to control the narrative," I fired back, my voice resolute echoing into the courtroom. I refused to accept that anymore. With each statement I made, I felt lighter, the burden of his lies beginning to lift. Even as he spat out accusations meant to undermine me, I discovered a fierce determination to reclaim my story. The prosecutor leaned in, asking pointed questions that reframed the truth. As David continued to fumble under scrutiny, I took a deep breath, channeling every bit of power I had. This was my moment. Finally, after hours of tension, the judge called for a recess. I stepped out of the courtroom, and the chaos settled slightly as I took solace in the hallway. Ethan was immediately at my side, concern etched on his face. "You did incredible, Sarah," he said sincerely, his hands resting lightly on my shoulders. "I felt like I was drowning," I admitted, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "What if it wasn't enough?" "It was enough," he said firmly, his eyes locked onto mine. "You stood up for yourself. You've told your truth, and that's powerful." Before I could reply, the door of the courtroom swung open and an officer approached. "We're about to resume. I wanted to let you know that the judge is taking your testimony very seriously." The words sank in, but uncertainty still clung to me like a shadow. "Thank you," I replied, feeling fortified yet fragile. As I followed Ethan back into the courtroom, I promised myself to carry this truth into battle. The journey was not over yet, but with Ethan by my side and my heart steady, I was ready for whatever came next. This wasn't just about court. The confrontation would set the course of my life, my future. And even if I didn't yet know what lay ahead, I was prepared to meet it with courage. I would not be silenced. I would not be broken. This was my story, and I was finally the one to tell it. The months that followed the trial were a whirlwind of emotions. With the restraining order firmly in place, I began to feel a sense of liberation that I hadn't known was possible. Each day was a testament to reclaiming my narrative. Every choice I made emphasized the freedom I'd fought for. Ethan remained by my side, his unwavering support transforming the heaviness of my past into a newfound promise of hope. Our connection deepened as we navigated life together, sharing meals, laughter, and dreams of a future untethered from the past. Simple moments spent in each other's company became cherished memories, each one binding us closer. Today marked 3 years since I had left David, and I stood at the helm of a new chapter. Invited to share my story at a women's shelter, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. As I took my place at the front of the room, a sea of hopeful faces greeted me. I took a deep breath and began. "I'm here to tell you that recovery is possible," I shared, my voice steady. "It wasn't easy, but I reclaimed my power. If I can do it, so can you." As I recounted my journey, witnessing the reflections of pain and understanding in their eyes, I felt a shift within myself, a sense of purpose ignited. The applause that followed was cathartic, a release of emotions that reaffirmed the strength of solidarity among survivors. After speaking, I navigated through conversations with women who shared their struggles, each connection a reminder of why I had come. I spotted Ethan in the crowd, his pride radiating warmth as he approached me. "You were amazing," he said, pulling me into a gentle embrace. "You gave them hope." I smiled, the joy swelling in my chest. "I couldn't have done it without you, Ethan." Weeks turned into months filled with advocacy work and community building. And on a crisp autumn day, while walking hand in hand, Ethan turned to me, his eyes sincere. "I want to be a part of your future, Sarah. You're extraordinary." His words resonated deeply, and I felt the weight of my past lift even further. "I want that too," I admitted, realizing how far we had both come. As we stood there under the canopy of colorful leaves, I embraced the promise of our intertwined futures. I no longer feared the shadows of my past, but welcomed the light we had created together. With every step, I saw the potential of a life shaped by resilience, trust, and enduring love. Together, we could flourish. Together, we would shine. The journey had been challenging, but now the horizon glowed brightly ahead, filled with the promise of new beginnings, and I was ready to embrace it all, even the beautiful uncertainty.